What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking briefly about how all steroids more or less just do the same thing. And I know that sounds kind of nuts when there are, there's bulking compounds, there's cutting compounds, there's things to step on stage that dry you out, there's this, there's that, there's a lot of hype behind certain things and certain compounds for certain situations. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to muscle growth, what we're basically concerned with is how good is a compound at nitrogen retention. This is sort of like how we compare and contrast how well these things are performing in a muscle accrual phase. So androgen receptor activation is accomplished via the same mechanism by any steroid, more or less. And the steroids, after you administer them, they bind to the AR and transcribe anabolic and androgenic effects in tissues. Interestingly enough, though, the human body generally responds in almost the exact same way to any anabolic steroid, because they all basically just do the same thing at the end of the day. And this is a quote from a study I want to mention to you guys that I feel is really worth highlighting, because people will often use drugs. I've covered this in the past. A lot of people will use drugs based on the fact that they think they need them because they're stronger. When you actually look at the clinical data, you're more so evaluating their side effect profile and thinking the additional water retention or the additional blood volume or the additional whatever is what is, making the drug superior to another, when in reality, you're not actually building more muscle. You're just recognizing the side effects as a fringe benefit in your mind, thinking it's more muscle, when once you drop that, you're going to drop that artificially inflated, weight, water, intramuscular, whatever it is. The true thing we're looking for is permanent muscle accrual. And this study exemplifies exactly the point I'm trying to make. It says, after 1935, the best method of discovering and measuring the protein building action of androgenic steroids in humans proved to be metabolic balance studies. In 1955, when anabolic steroids with less androgens were developed, the nitrogen balance method was used again to evaluate and compare the nitrogen sparing effect of the various preparations. The findings of the numerous balance studies that were performed are as follows. The injectable 17 beta esters such as nandrolone phenylpropanate, nandrolone decanoate, and methanolone enanthate exert a strong anabolic action for several weeks, amounting to 2 to 2.5 grams of nitrogen per day, which corresponds to a daily gain of 12 to 15 grams protein or 60 to 75 grams lean body mass. The orally active 17 alkyl derivatives induce a dose-dependent nitrogen-saving effect of the same order. So what's the takeaway from all that? Basically, nitrogen retention and protein accretion were roughly the same between all of the steroids evaluated in the study, and they are compounds that are still commonly, swapped in and out of cycles nowadays. These are the things that people choose for their whatever effect, and will favor over one thing or over another. But at the end of the day, some steroids are more tissue selective. Some will antagonize SHBG and or estrogen more than others. Some will result in a drier cosmetic look that differs from another one. Or, when it comes to lean muscle growth, though, they more or less do the same thing in a nitrogen retention context. So the end result is basically the same. It's just your way of getting there that's going to differ, and the body composition you kind of look like while you do it. So considering this, it would be wise to choose the most well-tolerated anabolic agents with the lowest risk profiles that you can use to accomplish whatever muscle building endeavors and goals you have, in my opinion. So if nitrogen sparing is more or less the same between two compounds, but one has far less clinical data backing its safety in humans, no tolerability data, no clinical safety data, why is it that so many guys are, reaching for the most exotic compounds, like the new drug on the scene, it says it's like trend without the crazy mental sides and blah, blah, like all these new steroids that are basically were shelved back decades ago because they were found to be, subpar anabolic agents, but are resurrected and sold via underground labs as, the new hyped up steroid, when most of these were abandoned and are seen as, worse, or at best are just as, effective as the traditional anabolic agents we already have available, with far more safety and tolerability data for us to reference. So, it's not uncommon nowadays for, some bro to, reach for DHB instead of nandrolone because of the exotic appeal, and just because they heard a couple guys say, oh, it's like trend without the side effects or something like that. At the end of the day, if you use something, this is just what I would have done if had I gone back in time. It would have been evaluate from just a risk profile in general. It only makes sense to really evaluate if the muscle accrual at the end of the day is going to be the same between almost all of these compounds, what am I going to choose? It's going to be the ones that are going to be the safest for me and are going to be, something I can use with the least risk to my health and with the greatest longevity and achieve the same thing. Like, that's basically what it boils down to. What has the most clinical data backing it, and or in some cases anecdotal reports backing its efficacy, I suppose, if you were to go the experimental compound route, because I'm not, who am I to say that you shouldn't use compounds with no data on humans when I literally do that on myself all the time? I'm just saying, from a general being smart context, if I was not experimental like I am, I would have stuck with tried and true compounds that you know exactly what to expect, and you can see what has happened on humans with relative long-term use relative to things that have no data whatsoever, and we're just basing it off of fucking, like its effect on like a fucking yeast cell or something like that. So, but anyways, take from that what you will. That's just something I wanted to bring to your guys' attention, because a lot of people do have misconceptions about the efficacy of certain compounds relative to others. They think some are just, way better than another one, when in reality, it's, often just the side effects that are accumulating that make people think they feel something, or, it's doing something that is not noticeable with another one, so it's working better, or they're just blowing up with water retention and they think that the compound is stronger, when in reality it's just heavily aromatizing drug or something like that. And there are, arguments about, benefits of having something that heavily converts to estrogen relative to another. I'm not going to get into the details of that now, because there are, more elaborate arguments on the actual muscle growth potential of certain compounds that do aromatize versus not. But at the end of the day, in general, overarching wise, most of these things show to accumulate the same nitrogen retention relative to one another. So in my opinion, it only makes sense in a general safety context to choose the ones that are going to have the least deleterious outcomes to your health. So take from that what you will. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplatesmoredates.com. Check me out on Instagram at moreplates_moredates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, BitChute, TikTok, etc., wherever else I am, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the mailing list. First link in the description below. I highly recommend you do, because anytime I post a video that is elaborate and, hard to understand, or I feel like I just rambled way too much, I'll often publish an article to go along with it, which is super polished and proofread, has broken down into table of contents, subsections with all the clinical studies referenced and cited for you to go look into deeper yourself for further research that I don't include in the videos. I kind of just, reference them quickly and then start rambling about something. If you want to delve into that stuff deeper, it's literally in the articles, which you will get sent immediately when they get published if you are on that list. So a lot of incentive to sign up for that. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.